You want to lead one day? Well, learn how to follow.
Well, welcome to North Point. Hey, as I look out here, there's some of you that I've met, and there's some of you that I haven't. And then there's some of you that are just bummed that I'm not Jeremy. And honestly, same, okay? And if we haven't met yet, my name is John. I help out as our Republic campus pastor, and I want to welcome everyone watching live here in Springfield and Republic, okay? Welcome. Rumor has it your campus pastor has the cutest kids. I don't know who started that rumor, but I'm spreading it, okay? But I also want to welcome everyone watching online. I got to connect with an online regular this past week, Jan Seal, as he's driving trucks around the United States, but stays connected because he watches online. Hey, that's what the online experience is for, so we're glad to have you. But past couple weeks, we've been walking through this series called Leadersheep 101, and when I heard about this series, I got so excited because I am a leadership connoisseur, okay? I can't get enough of it. And I read leadership books, and I listen to leadership podcasts, and I host leader meetings, and I went to a conference all about leadership the past couple of weeks ago, and I was super excited to impress you with all the leadership principles that I've learned from Jeremy Johnson. And then I found out that's not what this series is about, so that's kind of a bummer. Actually, this series, it's not about how to lead. It's actually about how to follow. And when you follow, you actually become a better leader, which is interesting. But we've been going through the 23rd Psalm, which is a psalm that David wrote. And really, one of the first things I want you to grasp is like, what is the 23rd Psalm? And this is what it is. It's a song of gratitude to a loving God in a painful world. That's what it is. It's a song of gratitude to a loving God in a painful world. And a couple weeks ago, we got some painful news as we walked through the first verse of that psalm, which is, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want, okay? So the Lord is our shepherd. What does that make us? Assistant to the shepherd, exactly, yeah. No, it makes us the sheep. That's what, and hurtful, okay? Because I heard sheep aren't very smart. And then last week, we talked about he makes us lie down in green pastures. It sounds like a Nicholas Sparks novel. I love it, all right? And we talked about rest. And so if you fall asleep during service today, you're just applying last week's message. I'm proud of you, okay? You get a pass today only, all right? But honestly, the older I've gotten, I've just gotten a different perspective on that 23rd Psalm. Right? I had a completely different perspective in my 20s. I was like, this seems boring. Makes me lay down in green pastures. Like, give me the mountains, give me the beach. I want to be adventurous. And now that I'm 30 and my knees pop when I stand up and I have back pain, this is my pace. I like this, laying down in green pastures, okay? And, now that I turned down the volume in my stereo so that I drive better, this just fits me nice, all right? And I think perspective is important, okay? Because I've had a lot of different perspectives. In my 20s, I have a completely different perspective than I do now when I'm 30, wise, mature, right? When I was 20, I didn't really care about my health, okay? I'd eat a brownie and I'd just pretend that it's half of a bigger brownie. And I'm like, see, I'm healthy. Like, I'm a walking chickpea, okay? Now that I'm 30, I get injured just by sleeping. The other week, I woke up and my neck, I'm just like, what is going on? And I just can hardly walk. And people are like, car wreck? And I'm like, close. I just slept on it wrong. It's weird. I didn't know that was a thing. When I was 20, daylight savings time hits, and I'm excited. I am carpe dieming that, okay? I am seizing the day. I'm spending that extra hour. I'm going hiking. I'm going golfing. I'm adventurous. I got an extra hour of sunlight. Now that I'm 30, it's more like carpe diem, okay? Just meet the day, all right? 5:15 rolls around. Kind of nice that it's dark, okay? Time to put the jams on and just hang out on the couch, watch some TV. Bettering yourself mentally and physically, those are daylight activities, okay? We don't do that at night, all right? So it's been kind of nice, all right? And I can just imagine, because Jesus made it 3 years into his 30s. You don't think he experienced some back pain and onset arthritis in his elbow? He was a carpenter. Any injury after 30 you don't recover from. It's a big deal. Dude used to eat 5 loaves and 2 fish for dinner. You do that after you're 30, bloated for weeks, can't fit in your toga, okay? It's seriously, perspective matters, all right? And so, really, I think our perspective, it affects us more than we like to think. Yeah, there's actually this psychology term, and it's called transference. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it's basically like if you have a bad experience with one person in the group, you will transfer it to everyone in the group, and it alters your perspective. Like people have done this with leaders, right? You put your trust in a leader that you're like, they are for me. They are for the people. They're going to bring structure to something that's broken. They're going to fix it. And then you find out that they were only in it for themselves. And you're like, I don't trust anybody with a microphone, right? Like we've done this with relationships where maybe you're in a relationship and you had one that you thought was going to lead to the altar, but instead it led to heartbreak. And now you're stuck sitting thinking, I don't really believe in love. All relationships are a sham. They're just the beginning of, when are they going to fall apart? And you're skeptical and you're cynical and it's skewed your perspective. And I think a lot of people have done that with church. You have a bad experience at a Bible camp or at a youth retreat or, at a small group. And in a time of vulnerability, when you needed love and acceptance and grace, you were met with a lack of love and a lack of understanding and judgment. And now you're left thinking, they're all hypocrites. We do that. And so my thought is today, my prayer is that this message and maybe this series is something that can actually give us a different perspective of who God is. Maybe we've transferred some things onto him because of his people, okay? Maybe we've done that. My hope is today this can be just that spiritual chiropractor that just adjusts that perspective, and it may be painful in the moment, but you walk out of here thinking, I didn't know I could feel this good. That's the hope, okay? And so as we continue this series, we're in kind of that second and third verse there. And it says this, it says, he leads me beside still waters, and he restores my soul. I love that. I don't know what sticks out to you. Some of you are like, still waters parts, that's nice. Some of you, I like the restore part. That's a pretty cool part too. But one of the first things I want you to understand about this passage is really just those first two words. He leads. Seriously, he leads. No, really. He leads. He leads. For some of you, this is the only thing you need to hear today. He leads. And if you're taking notes, you can write this down. Is that we wander, so he leads. That's what we do. We wander. We wander. So he leads. Really. We are like the sheep, right? We wander, all right? Our fears run rampant in our head. Our problems control our day. Our emotions control our actions. Our addictions run our life. We are wanderers. It seems to be like it's just part of our DNA. And here's if this is surprising anybody, we're also a church full of wanderers. I'm a wanderer. You're a wanderer. You're sitting around other wanderers. And a wanderer's journey is not lonely because we all do it. And so many times we're like, yeah, but I wish I wasn't single. Okay, are you leading or is he leading? You're like, yeah, but I wish I made more money in my job. Oh, are you leading or is he leading? What are you doing? And so many times we're like, we're just who's I think that they need to hear my unfiltered response on their Facebook post. Are you leading or is he leading? What is going on here? And so many times we're like, okay, we wander. It's what we do. And here's my question that I have today, okay? And this is interesting, but is it possible to not be where we want to be, but exactly where God wants us to be? Is it possible? Is it possible to not be where we want to be, but exactly where God wants us to be? And that's the perspective shift that I think could be helpful for us today. In fact, David, the psalmist, he's a fellow wanderer, okay? This is what he writes in Psalms. He says, those who know your name trust in you. For you, Lord, you've never forsaken those who seek you. He's like, we wander. But here's the awesome part. You never forsake those who seek you. Yeah. So is it possible to be rock bottom, but desperate for him, which is exactly where he wants you to be? I think so. Because so many times we don't like to hand over leadership of our life until we've led ourselves into a place that we don't want to be. Like, it's not until our finances are crumbling that we say, okay, maybe you lead. It's not until our marriage is on the last leg that we say, oh, maybe we'll give you a try. It's not until our mental health is at an all-time low that we say, well, maybe I just can't do this thing on my own. Like, maybe I need a different leader. Maybe there's a better leader than me. It's interesting, okay? It's kind of like this story, okay? We got Lady Baba here, all right? Which, great name, come on. That's a Jeremy classic, all right? And so we had a sheep, but this sheep's name is Shrek. A lot like Lady Baba, just a normal little lamb, but real. And Shrek, good little lamb, okay? Just hang out in the pack. But one day, Shrek wandered off. He wandered into a cave, and a shepherd noticed. So he went looking for Shrek. He spent hours looking for this little thing and couldn't find him. Eventually, he was like, I got to come back tomorrow. It's getting dark. So he comes back the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and he can't find him. So he eventually gives up. And so forgets about him. And then 6 years passes, and this shepherd gets a phone call. And somebody's like, hey, I think I found your sheep. He's like, what sheep? He's like, well, you've lost him for a pretty long time. So he goes, okay, like, let me, he's like, could this be Shrek? So he goes, he sees him, and we actually got a picture of what Shrek looks like right here. Yeah, Shrek been missing for a little while, all right? I saw some of your haircuts over COVID. Never looked this bad, all right? Like, some of you are so nice. You're like, he's not fat, he's just fluffy. And I'm like, yeah. He looks like he could have eaten Lady Baba, all right? And that's maybe how he stayed alive. But the thing about this is a normal sheep, they'll accumulate about 10 pounds of fur in a year, or wool, and then the shepherd will shear that off, because honestly, it's kind of unhealthy to have that much weight, on their legs. But since Shrek had been missing for 6 years, Shrek accumulated 60 pounds of extra wool. Which, like, wild, okay? And I just imagine how that phone call went. Like, what do you think? You think that the shepherd got the phone call? He's like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously? Like, you know what? I'll go see him just to give him an earful. Be like, I went looking for you hours, weeks, like, and now you want to show up. Really? Like, you think that's how it went? You think he's like, well, fine, I'll take you back, but you're not getting dinner tonight. You think as soon as, little Shrek came back, he was like, okay, like, none of the shun liked him. They were like, bad Shrek, okay? And they didn't want to hang out with him. He's like the black sheep. Like, you think that's how that went? Well, it's not how it went. In fact, the shepherd was blown away and excited to see him. He's like, are you like, he's found. He's found. And so the shepherd runs over there, and we actually got the next picture, which is, this is what he did within 30 minutes of seeing Shrek. He sheared off the 60 pounds of wool, and he actually restored him back to his original state. Which I find is interesting, okay? Because your perspective matters. How you think that phone call went probably determines how you feel like God feels about you when you wander. If you're like, dude, I bet he's mad. I bet he's disappointed. I bet, he's back in the flock, but he's got to earn it, right? It's like, no. But for some of us, that's our perspective of how our shepherd leads us. And that's just not the case. And if you're taking notes, you can write this down. This is that we wander. So God's not interested in paying you back. He's just interested in bringing you back. That's all. Like, God's not interested in paying you back. If you wander and come back, when you wander and come back, he's not like, well, you're going to get a lecture. That's not it. He's not interested in paying you back. And some of you say, well, you don't know what I did. And you're right, I didn't. I deserve to be paid back. And if it was up to me, probably. But thankfully, I'm not God. Like, he's better than me. We wander. That's what we do. And he's just interested in bringing us back. Like, he doesn't want to heap more pain on us, right? Like, we already have pain from the consequences of our decisions. So he's like, I don't need to heap more on you. Like, that's not how that works, right? I'm not interested in paying you back. But here's what he doesn't do. He doesn't just remove you from all your consequences of your decisions and all your circumstances. That's not how that works. But he says, like, I'll support you through it. I'll walk with you through it. And for some of you, I know this isn't a parenting lesson, but parents, maybe you need to hear this. Like, maybe the best thing for your kid is for them to experience the full force of the decisions, the consequences of the decisions that they made, right? When they wander. I think for so many of us, we want to hop in, we want to rescue them, we want to save them. I think the only thing you're delaying is your pain and their pain. Sometimes the best way to get your values through their head is not to cram it down their throat, but it's actually to let them just experience the consequences of their decisions. Really. And I know that's tough to understand, but that's how God shepherds us. I'm like, man, what if we were able to parent like that? That'd be pretty different. You know, it's kind of like this. There's these Australian cattle ranchers. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. And some of you are like, Jonathan, I didn't know you're so country. And I'm like, well, I'm in Republic now. Yeah. I just left my boots at home. Okay. And so, like, there's these Australian cattle ranchers, and it's so fascinating when you hear from them. Like, they've got hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of cattle and like miles and miles of acres. So these cattle just roam and wander any which way, and like people will come to see the cattle, and they'll be like, "What? Like, where's the cattle?" And the ranchers are, you know, they're around. Like, are you not worried? Because this is a pretty huge investment. They're like, no. Well, you should build like fences to keep these, like this cattle close by so you can protect your investment, you can watch it, you can look at it. And they're like, yeah, we don't need to build fences because we built wells instead. I think that's an interesting perspective. The older we get, the more we realize, okay, like, God lets us wander. It's like a part of our DNA. It's just what we do. And he doesn't lead us beside electric fences. It's not like that's not the 23rd Psalm, right? He leads us beside still waters and refreshes and restores our soul when we drink of it. You know the way our shepherd leads us? It's not by ultimatums. It's by invitations. That's what he does. He invites us to drink. And any day we don't want to, that's just our own choice. Really. And the best relationships I have, they aren't out of obligation, they're out of want. Like, I want to hang out with this person. I want to be around these people. Like, those are the best relationships. And that's how our shepherd leads us. It's kind of interesting how he does that. Right? There's a big difference there. And so, I got good news and bad news today. Which one do you want first? Bad news. Okay, sounds good. All right. The bad news is this, is if you want to be the leader of your life, God will let you. But the good news of this is when you led yourself to a spot that you don't want to be at, he's right there. And he'll lead you beside still waters. He invites you to drink, but it's up to you. And he refreshes and restores your soul when you do. David, the psalmist, he writes probably one of my favorite psalms right here. And this gives us an interesting perspective. He says, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you're there. If I make my bed in the depths, you're there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. I love that perspective. Where can I go where your spirit is not? Nowhere. You know, that makes me think that maybe God's not so concerned with our wandering. But maybe there's something deeper there. Like, this message isn't like 10 steps to wander less. That's not it, right? Because I'm a wanderer. You're a wanderer. We're wanderers. It's just what we do. But I think there might be something deeper going on here. In fact, the last thing I'll have you write down is this, is that where there's a wandering heart, there's a wounded heart. Really. Where there's a wandering heart, there's a wounded heart. And for some of you, you're like, I don't know, I don't really necessarily feel that way. It's true. But every day we wander. It just looks a little different, right? I wander. I'm like, any day I start my day without God, I'm just wandering. Any day I won't admit my weakness and my dependence on him, textbook wandering. Like any day I try to resolve conflict on my own without involving God, wandering. Here's my job. What's the wound? How do we identify that wound and invite him to heal it? Because again, it's not a matter of if we'll wander. It's when we'll wander. We wander. And that doesn't mean, this is like, okay, whatever, not a big deal. Like, yeah, we wander. The great part is that he always invites us back. That's important. So here's what if we're doing the math, this is where we're at, okay? Why does God let us wander? Because he loves us. Like, why do I have to experience the full pain of the consequence of the decisions that I make? Because he loves us. Why does he continue to give off-ramps of grace and repentance to him? Because he loves us. And here's our job. Identify the wound. Where's the wound? What's the wound? If you're wandering in your marriage, there's a wound. It's probably not that you just don't get enough sex or attention. I think there might be something deeper there. If you're wandering in your finances, what are you trying to buy that you think is going to bring you happiness and fullness? Where's the wound? If you're wandering on social media, what type of validation are you looking for that you're not getting from God? It could be a wound. It could be a wound. That's our job. Let's identify that wound. And no one knows this better than this guy, Robertson. And I know that sounds like a made-up name. I promise you it's not. He's a real guy, okay? Great name, by the way. Robertson. Grew up really a product of his environment. He lost his dad at a young age and really got a part of the wrong crowd. And so in his teenage years, he'd spend his nights terrorizing the town. They'd go and they'd break and enter into shops, and they'd steal stuff, and they'd beat up people on the street. Just a bad dude. Until when he was 20, he heard a pastor speaking on the street. And he stopped, probably to beat him up. But he listened. And that night, he ended up making God the leader of his life. At age 22, Robertson wrote his first hymn called Come Thou Fount. And I'm, full disclosure, more of a rap guy than a hymn guy. But I grew up singing this hymn. And it has some powerful lyrics. It talks about, oh, to grace be the debtor, right? The debt that Christ paid for us. And grace and mercy, the richness of that. But in the chorus, he writes these words that say, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. And what's crazy is 3 years later, Robertson was sitting in the back of a stagecoach, and there was a gal who was singing, and she was singing, Come Thou Fount. She got to the chorus, and she sang, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Robertson lost it. He's bawling, and the lady's like, oh, you never heard this hymn before? She's like, yeah, heard it. I wrote it. And for the past 2 years, I've been away from the God I love. Prone to wander, I feel it. Believe me, I do. All of us. North Point is a church full of wanderers. But here's what you got to know. God doesn't care what you've done or where you've been. He noticed that you're gone, and more than that, he cares that you're gone. He just wants you back. He's not interested in paying you back. He just wants you back. I don't care if you're drunk at a party you shouldn't be at. He notices, he cares, he wants you back. I don't care if you woke up next to somebody you don't even know their last name. He notices, he cares, he wants you back. I don't care if you've just been the leader of your own rebellion. And you've made these choices on purpose. He notices, he cares, he wants you back. I don't care if you've just been too busy for God and you just haven't included him because you don't want to be a burden. He notices, he cares, he wants you back. I don't care if this is the morning after your biggest regret. He notices, he cares, he wants you back. My hope is that you don't have to wake up 2 years from now in the back of an Uber when 88.3 The Wind is playing Come Thou Fount. And you're like, yeah, I've been wondering. My hope is today that we can all just get through our heads like we're wanderers. It's what we are. It's what we do. And you know what? God's okay with that. Because he doesn't lead us with electric fences. He leads us with wells. He leads us beside still waters. It's our job to drink. It's our job to say, what's that wound that's behind that wandering? And search my heart, oh God. Can you heal that wound in my heart? Can you refresh and restore me today? That's my prayer for all of us. So let me pray. Lord, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for these people of North Point. North Point is a church of wanderers, but we don't stop there. We take a step further. We say, Lord, how can you be the leader of our life? And here's what I love is that you always lead us to a next step. What's the wound? How do we identify that? And how do we ask you to heal that, to restore that today? I pray as I examine my heart and look for those wounds, I pray whether you're at Republic or here at Springfield or online watching, I pray that we can do that same thing. Say, Lord, would you come and heal those wounds in my life? In your name, amen. Amen. Well, hey, again, okay, for all of us, we have a next step when it comes to any type of message. That's our responsibility, that's our job, and when he leads, he'll lead us to one, okay? And so in each one of our seats at all of our campuses, we've got that connection card. If you're watching online, it's just in the comment thread above. But this is our opportunity to mark that next step, okay? What's that wound? And I know, we talk about connection cards a lot, and I know by now you probably already moved it to the side, and you're like, yeah, I don't need to look at it. I get it, okay? I picked them up, I know, okay? But you don't even need to write your name. Seriously, I just say, what's the wound? Write that down. We'd just love to pray for you. You don't got to write your name. If you do, I'd love to reach out and pray for you and partner with you. But I encourage every one of us, let's write down something on those connection cards, something to think about this week that we say, what's a little deeper than that surface level wandering? So I also want to invite our ushers forward. This is our opportunity to give. And I want to say, I am blown away by the generosity of North Pointers. In fact, a couple weeks ago, we had a guy from Republic who went to go volunteer at the Dream Center. And Dream Center, let me tell you, you are doing an amazing job. Okay, we had a guy, he's handing out meals to people, and there's a lady with a shopping cart, and she had a pair of brand new shoes in it. And she's there to receive meals, and she turned to that volunteer and said, hey, the Dream Center has been so helpful for me. Do you think that somebody could benefit from these pair of shoes? I just kind of want to be helpful. We're like, yes, absolutely. Here's what I love. Generosity, it's not taught, it's caught, right? And I think the most generous people probably wouldn't even say they're being generous. That's just their lifestyle, all right? And I am blown away. I'm encouraged. I'm challenged by so many of you North Pointers, and I'm thankful for that. And if this is your first time, no pressure whatsoever to give. In fact, what we want to do is we want to make a donation in your honor to a local nonprofit. So just by showing up today, you can know you made a difference in somebody's life. Whether you're in Republic, you can pick some Republic nonprofits that we make that donation to, or in Springfield, you'll pick some Springfield nonprofits that we make that donation to. But ushers, you can go ahead and pass those buckets. We can drop our cards, our giving in those buckets. And while we do that, I feel like I need to update you on some Easter service times, okay? Easter is coming up. It's around the corner. And Easter, hey, this is a great opportunity where somebody would be more open to coming to church than ever before, right? It just takes an invitation. So for all of us, I want us to be updated. What are those service times in Springfield? I know I'll get a couple people excited about this. At Springfield, we've got a 5 p.m. service on Saturday night, okay? We got a Saturday night service, and then we've got our normal Sunday services here in Republic, adding a service at 9. So we've got a 9 and a 10:15. Great opportunity to think through, okay, who have I been investing in? Who could benefit from a safe place where people can find and follow Jesus? And the more that I think about it, the more that I'm like, I think a lot of people. And so it just takes that invitation. So I'd encourage each and one of you to update yourself on those service times, okay? And get to inviting. But would you stand with me? Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Each one of our campuses, we'll have a couple people down front. If we haven't met, love to meet you. Have a great week. See you next week.